Welcome back, students, to the class of History, Chapter 1 What, Where, How, and When, Class 6. Today, we are starting day 2 of this class of History. Students, before starting or proceeding further in the class of day 2, first I want to recall or make you recall whatever the things we had discussed in the earlier class, or you can call in the previous class of day 1. We had known about or I had given you some idea or basic information about social science, which subjects has to be taught in social science, that is history, geography, civics, the definition of history, what is history, the process of studying and recording the events which occurred in the past is called history, that we had discussed yesterday earlier. Time frames of history. On the basis of time frame, the history can be divided into two parts: prehistory and proto-history. Time period of before written history is known as prehistory, whereas the time period between history and prehistory is called proto-history. Who is a historian, and some assignments as well I have given you. Hope so. The terms or the things that we had discussed in class 1 or day 1 of history class are very much clear to you all, and I had given you some questions to do in the assignment as well, and I am happy to inform you that some of the students had text me the done assignment on my WhatsApp number. So I am very happy to tell you that students are taking interest in the history class or the social science class. Now, day 2 continued. The name of the chapter we had discussed again and again in the day 1 classes also, and today also, what, where, how, and when. Means only these four basic elements or the four basic concepts mainly we will discuss in the chapter number 1 of history class 6, right? So let's begin. Changes in history. So on the basis of time frame, we had already discussed that history can be divided into two branches. But what are the changes in history? Any change in history which had come with the time. So, students, what is the main element or the main basic important factor in determining or analyzing history or reading history? It is the time. In the first point of the slide also says that in history, whatever we study is the changes that take place with the time. Now, just take for the example that we had discussed on day 1, that your parents might be familiar with aeroplane, grandparents might be familiar with buses or train, great grandparents might be familiar with carts and bullock carts that we have discussed. So in that example, from that example also we can easily point out that whatever is happening from carts to buses and train, it doesn't happen in an overnight or in a day or two. It has happened with the passage of time. As the time has passed by, these changes in modes of transportation has come, that we had discussed already. So the first lines we can easily correlate with that in history, whatever we study, anything, whether kingdoms, places, war, travel, anything that happened with the passage of time. Now, basically two types of changes are there in history on the basis of passage of time. That is number one, chronological changes, and the number two is temporal changes. So one by one we will clarify again. Students, just keep it in mind that whatever the new terms that we will come across through reading the slides or through discussing the chapter in the class, all the terms we will clarify at that time only. We will not keep any doubt as we further proceed or as we reach to the last of the chapter. So whenever the new term comes, in the same time we will clarify the term and then proceed. So this approach we will follow through the entire class, through the entire session. Chronological order, two changes are there: chronological changes, temporal changes on the basis of time. These changes come in history. What is chronological changes? The example that I had given on day 1, the bullock carts aeroplane, the first example. In that example only we can see the chronological change. The change, there is a change, a sequence of change in a arranged manner or in a series. All the things are happening. From first cart came bullock carts, from that technology, due to the technological advancement, the human beings or the people or the individuals shifted to bus, electric motors, trains. So all the changes that is happening in the example that we had discussed earlier is due to the chronological changes, that as we have seen above in the example, that the changes occurred in a series of time. Second one is temporal changes. Now the question comes that what are temporal changes? As we had discussed earlier, that we will clarify the questions, doubt, whatever will come in your mind during the class at the same time only. So chronological changes we have understood through the example. Now temporal changes. So now we will try to understand what are temporal changes. In temporal changes, the first concept we will try to understand, and the first concept is the first word of the chapter. The first concept in temporal changes is what. Now in what we will mainly focus on three main things or three main factors. First, food. We often we use the terms like what kind of food we eat, what kind of food they eat, what kind of food is available in different parts of the globe, or what kind of food is ate by the people of USA, what kind of food is eaten by the people of China, so on. So in what in the first concept of the temporal changes, what we will discuss three main things, that it focuses on food, clothes and houses or shelter as well. In clothes we often use or we often ask the question that what kind of clothes do you wear, what are you wearing? So like that. Houses, what kind of houses, shelters are there in ancient times? Because in class 6 we are mainly in history, we are mainly discussing about the ancient history. When we will move further to class 7, in class 7 you will read medieval history and 8 modern history. Like this the sequence is there. So about houses we will talk about that what type of houses that people used to make or people used to live in the ancient times or in the past. All these things comes under what. Just like what kind of food was grown by the people during Harappan civilization. Harappan civilization, it is the most ancient human civilization that we will discuss in the coming chapters as well. What kind of food was grown during Egyptian civilizations. So many civilizations are past civilization or ancient civilizations are there where the human settlements starts developing and so on. A very interesting quote I want to share with you is that those who don't study the past are condemned to repeat it. I repeat, those who don't study the past are condemned to repeat it. Means there are many examples related to this, that those person, because the in history we read about the past, what are the good things we had done in past, what are the bad deeds we had done in past, what are the mistakes that our ancestors have committed in past, and from learning from those mistakes, so that in coming time we, or in future, we don't repeat it again. It is necessary to read history. But those people or those persons who don't read history, this line is best suited for them, is that those who don't read the past means history, are condemned to repeat it. How this is possible? That if they don't read the past, what are the mistakes or what are the drawbacks that of our ancestors are there, and if we don't learn that what mistakes they had committed in the past, and all these things we come to know by reading history only, and if we are not reading history, it is very much predictable that all those mistakes which has been done by in past by our ancestors or by the primitive people of human settlements, if we are not reading history or if we are not aware of the past, we are likely to repeat them or repeat those mistakes again. So that was the description of the last key line. Now, what is the name of our chapter? What, where, how, and when. In this chapter, we are discussing about the four major concepts. What we had discussed, mainly the three things we mainly focus in: what, food, clothes, and shelter, that we had discussed just now in the previous slide. Now we are taking the second concept of temporal changes, and the second integral part of this chapter is where. In where we will focus, just like in what we had focused in food, clothes, and shelter. Food, clothes, and shelter. Sorry. In where also we will focus on some things, just like food gatherers, hunters, animal rearing, travel, wars, kingdoms. Altogether, 6 subpoints are there in where. Where, that is the title. We will mainly focus on these 6 subpoints. Food and gatherers. So, if we talk about food gatherers, if we talk about food gatherers, where they are mostly found, in which part, where they used to live. The same is the with the point number 2, hunters, food gatherers and hunters, where they are found mostly, where they used to live. All these questions are very much common. So, where they are found mostly. So, hunter and food gatherers are mostly found in the tribal pockets, and you can call forest pockets. Pockets, the meaning of pockets are areas, means they are mostly found in tribal areas as well as forest areas. We are talking about the first 2 points, subpoints of where, food gatherers and hunters. The third point, animal rearing. So, where people are found, those who are involved with animal rearing, things like that. So, mostly those people are found in low lying hilly areas or mountainous areas, regions as well. Number 4, travel, the most integral part of the history as well as geography. I am talking about travel, where most of the islands were discovered was the result of travel only. travel led to expansion of many kingdoms, because if the explorers, if they at that time or in the past or in the ancient times, if they don't decide to travel through the oceans to find new places, most of the parts of the world must be unknown to the people by this time also. So it is just due to the travel that most of the islands were discovered, most of the continents, new areas, fertile areas, all these have discovered due to the travel. So travel is a very integral part in both the subject, in history as well as geography. And travel has led to the expansion of many kingdoms that we will come across in the various chapter of history as well. Now, with the point number 5, wars, where the wars, different wars have been fought in the past. This is the general question that comes in our mind. Battle of Palasi, Battle of Panipat. So where? Just like Battle of Panipat is fought in Panipat, present day in Haryana state. Battle of Palasi is fought in Buxar, present day Bihar. Just like that, all these questions are related to where. So where all the wars or different wars, many wars have been fought from the past times or in the past. So, and in the last, kingdoms, where different kings and kingdoms are located, where Magad Empire was located, where Kushanas used to rule, where the Sakas used to rule. All these things you will come in the chapters, coming chapters of history in class 6. So, I think both the points or both the concepts that we had discussed today, the first one is what, in that I am recalling it again. In what we had studied mainly about what kind of food they used to eat, food, clothes and shelter, what kind of houses they used to build, what kind of clothes they used to wear. All these things we had discussed in what, in where we mainly focused on 6 points: hunter gatherers or hunter and food gatherers. Third one is animal rearing. Animal rearing, the meaning of animal rearing, that the person who keeps the pet animals, those which are beneficial for the humans, just like goat, sheep, cow, buffalo, horses, etc. Number 4, travel. 5, wars. And number 6, kingdoms. All these 6 points come under the category or come under the concept of where that we had discussed just now, and I hope that each and every point must be clear as per my expectation to you all students, right? Okay. Now coming to the last point of the second concept under where, that all these questions are an important matter of concern. All these questions are an important matter of concern, like where hunter and gatherer used to live, where they are found, where animal rearing is done, where the people related to animal rearing occupation used to live, where different wards have been found, where is continent Asia. All these questions, where different kings and different kingdoms used to be located in the past. All these questions are questionable under the where. And so all these questions are an important matter of concern in having a clear understanding of the second concept of this chapter. And I am again emphasizing on my words, second concept of this chapter. First concept of what we had discussed, second concept where also we have discussed. And still, if you feel that you are have some doubts regarding any of the point, any of the word, any of the hard words, you can easily raise a question in the class. And because the class must be, I like the interactive class. I don't like that one only the teachers are saying and the students are hearing, but there is no interaction between the students and the teachers. So the class must be interactive. You raise question and I will clarify all the doubts as well. So in where also in the last line there is one important quote which I had presented to you all, that history is studied geographically and very interesting to read also, and geography is studied historically. I repeat, history is studied geographically and geography is studied historically. Means when we start reading history without the help of geographic extent, we are not able to read history very comfortably, or without geographical dimensions, without knowing the geographical dimensions, it is not possible to read history. Just like what was the extent of the Magadha Empire during the Maurya period, what was the extent of the Gupta Empire. All these questions come, and without knowing the geographical extent, how you will define that how much big was the Magadha Empire or the Gupta Empire, or and so on. Many empires are there, but these are the most biggest empire that we had studied about them in history, or you will study about them in class 6 also. And the second part of the quote is also very interesting, is geography is studied historically, history is studied geographically, that we had discussed. And geography, the subject geography, is also studied historically. Means when the formation of mountains or mountain ranges are there, when the oceans or has been formed, or when the big continents, or when the new islands has been formed, and all these questions are not at all answerable if we are not having the history of those things. So geography is also not possible without history. So both are dependent on each other. But in class 6 we have to read history, geography and civics, and according to me, to you all the three subjects are important. So on the day 2 we had discussed the two main components, the two main elements, or the two main concepts of this chapter, what and where. In the next class, or in the day 3 class, we will discuss further how and when, how the name of our country India, from where it has been came from, all these things we will discuss in day 3 class. So stay tuned, stay safe, stay at home, enjoy the holidays, take the precautions, and wait for my class of day 3. Thank you.